So welcome to the Monday, May 8th, 2023 meeting of the Jamaica Selectboard. It's a regular meeting. The first thing I'm going to do is call for any late additions to the agenda. I have two, but I don't know if either you or Greg has anything to add. Greg, do you have anything to add? Okay, two quick things. There's a little reverb. Good now?
Echo.
Okay, we'll try again. Oh, one of them has to be on mute.
Everything should be muted except for
Okay, great. Thank you, Sarah.
Am I co-host yet?
Yes.
Okay.
Awesome. So, two quick items at the end of the meeting. It's a long meeting, so it'll be quick. The first is to just discuss the fact that we probably need a quick special meeting of the select board to ratify actions taken by Sarah. We felt she was operating under her role as assistant treasurer, but we've gotten advice from VLCT that we need to do a little bit more, which is to appoint her as temporary treasurer and delinquent tax collector. So I'll just mention that at the end of the meeting. And then a quick discussion about the flagpole. All right. The first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the April 24th Select Board meeting. I make a motion.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on the minutes from the last meeting? No discussion. I'll call the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. Thank you. So without further ado, thank you so much. We have a presentation from Green Mountain Power. We've obviously had some interesting events this late winter, but it is, we do live in southern Vermont. That being said, the folks from Green Mountain Power offered to come, talk to the town, discuss, I don't want to, steal the thunder, but discuss plans, answer questions, and I'll just ask if you wouldn't mind each introducing yourselves and explaining your roles at Green Mountain Power.
Absolutely. So I'm Tiana Smith, and really appreciate the invitation to come and speak to you all tonight. So normally, when we're not in storms, I work on electrification and sustainability, and during storms, it's all hands on deck. And so my job during storm restoration is to communicate to towns, town officials, emergency managers, and we also have a critical care team that proactively reaches out to folks that may be on residential and medical equipment. So we'll talk a little bit more tonight. I also have Mike Burke and Don Mills with me who will introduce themselves, but really just wanted to come here tonight and talk to you a little bit about how storms are changing, what we're seeing, and the work that we're doing around future resiliency. So with that.
Yep. Thanks everyone, Mike Burke. I lead operations for Green Mountain Power. Work mainly in the Colchester, South Burlington area, but I travel the state every week. And then the local person that you might run into all the time, Don Mills.
I'm Don Mills. I'm the operations supervisor for the Brattleboro district. And, I oversee the crews doing the routine work as well as storm restoration in the Brattleboro area.
Thanks. So the reason we bring a presentation is we know this winter was tough, right? And we know it was tough on our customers. Tiana and I, Don, talked to a lot of them. It was tough on our team, and it was not, we say it was a normal winter. We're gonna go through some things here that are gonna show it wasn't a normal winter. The thing is, we are concerned that it could become normal. But the reason we have this is just to give context to some of the things we're doing, help the conversation. Happy to answer any questions as we go through this as well. So I believe that's a picture from Route 30 somewhere between Brattleboro and Jamaica of what.
I'm trying to make this look.
Yeah, just
if you click on this one right here.
Go to slideshow.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
There
The
it is.
top and start.
Oops, sorry. Slide. Let me see.
Go to the right on the top. Right above.
I guess my Zoom menu is hiding that.
That's okay. You could do it on the bottom though, where you were just.
Yeah,
It looks like
this
a cup.
That one right there.
It's really fun doing this.
Haven't done this.
There we go. Woo, yeah.
Okay, no pressure, right?
So,
It's all on you.
so next slide if you could.
do that?
So just GMP, we serve 272,000 customers, more or less 75 to 80% of the state. If you drew a line across Route 2, across northern Vermont, from Burlington to St. Jay, everything south except for, I think, 2 municipals. And, you know, certainly we have district offices all around the state. We have 15 district offices, including Brattleboro, Wilmington, and Sunderland that serve this area. About 85% is residential, the rest is commercial, so the majority of our customers are rural residential. You can read the other stuff later. Can we keep going? Just
We can post this on our website.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is just the trend we wanted to talk about. So this year, obviously, the 4 storms, we have criteria that we wrap around storms, working with our regulators, the Department of Public Service. And if you hit a certain amount of customers affected and a certain amount of damage, it's considered major storm. We actually hadn't had a major storm since Halloween 2019. We probably all remember Halloween 2017, Halloween 2019. Many of us remember it, we can't forget it. This winter, since December 16th, we've had 4 major storms. So we went 4 years without one. We had 4 in a span of about 2.5, 3 months. The big difference this year was normally we average about 2 heavy wet snowstorms a year. The rest of them are somewhat dry snow, the type of snow we all like. Good for the economy, good for everyone. So probably 20% heavy wet. This year we had 1 dry snow event, and it was in November. Every single event after that, it was 33 degrees and pretty much wet snow. That's a pretty drastic change in what we've seen. And it's funny, I mentioned the Route 2 corridor earlier, but pretty much everything from there south was on the heavy wet side. Everything from there north stayed a little bit drier. It wasn't all dry. We did end up having some heavy wet snow issues all the way to the Canadian border. It just wasn't 42 inches of heavy wet snow, which is what we experienced down here. So the trend is definitely toward warmer. Every time it snows at 33 degrees, it might as well be an ice storm. The weight of the precipitation is no different than the ice storm. The way it sticks to everything is no different than an ice storm. The difference with a heavy wet snowstorm is you can't move. With an ice storm, we can put chains on the trucks, we can put cleats on our shoes, and we can move pretty good. We heard stories of right on Pikes Falls Road, a line worker there was telling us that a task that usually takes them 15 minutes was taking 2.5 hours, and that was just to walk out to a pole to put a tag on it. So, you know, things were different. I'm gonna get to where we have plans, that it's not all gloom and doom, but of those 4 major storms, 3 of them were pretty much in the top 10 since, all of our top 10 storms have been since 2007. We had a Noricane in 2007, and then from Irene on, all the rest have been. 3 out of the top 10 were in the last 4 months. So they're getting worse, there's more precipitation. That event that we had in March, which I also know you experienced December 16th, was the same type of event. Heavy wet snow, not quite as much. The wind event, where we had the 2nd highest recorded wind speed ever at Burlington International Airport, that was a statewide event that was more focused on the western side. One district alone, our Middlebury district, had 62 broken poles in that event. And then the last 2 events, a heavy wet snowstorm at the end of January, and then the big one in March. The event in March, the original forecast was for 12 to 18 inches. That was bad. We doubled our workforce. If we had had 12 to 18 inches, I think we would have all been thanking above. As you know, in some areas, they just every 6 hours, they kept upping the totals. And eventually they moved the warning, which was originally just Bennington and Windham County, all the way to the Canadian border. And we ended up, we had reports of 42 inches, 46, 40, 30. We did an after action report with the National Weather Service, which we'll talk about in a minute, all the different National Weather Service and other weather services we use. and they always do what we call a total precipitation. They have gauges all over the place. If you take all the snow and melt it down, how much water is it? They had measurements of 5.5 inches on the Mass Vermont border. They had 4.5 inches in Searsburg. There's a big hole in their measuring area, pretty much along Route 30 until you get all the way to Brattleboro, Bells Falls. They had almost 4 in Bells Falls. We think that they had it here. My guess is we were in the 5 or more range here if you melted it down. The only reason I say that, when you think of an event with 5 to 6 inches of total precip, if you're in the summer, the roads are gone, right? In the winter, it's different because it all stays in one place, but think of the weight that's inside of that. What are we doing about it? We have a climate plan, okay? We're still we go back and forth a little bit here, but we have a climate plan. We've been doing what we call storm hardening projects forever. After some events, the 2017, 2018, and 2019 storms, which one of those was a pretty severe heavy wet snowstorm, the other two were high wind, we said, okay, we have to move faster. We got that climate plan approved. We went through 2 years of that climate plan. We got hit with 4 more storms this year. We're looking at it again and trying to see what we can do even quicker to storm harden our areas. We're also doing other things. We have battery storage. I assume some people in this area have battery storage. We're actually approaching our regulators. We have a 500 customer cap of battery storage. We're asking them to remove that cap. We applied, I think, last week, and we're hoping our regulators, our customers are calling them and asking them to remove the cap, so we're hoping that'll move pretty quick. And then we're also doing some things with permitting. We've actually had some jobs going through the process of trying to get permits for 4 to 5 years. A lot of them in this area, literally spanning the Route 30 from Rossingville all the way to Dummerston into Brattleboro. And what that permitting process is if you are in a 1 acre town in Vermont, Act 250 you have to apply for if you build more than 2,200 feet. Well, the spans that I'm talking about are all 2,200 feet. There's some pre-filing rules with Act 250 that you have to get all site control, everything like that, if you're in a 1 acre town before you can even apply. We figured that after 4 or 5 years of trying to get those permitted and everything, we've waited long enough. If you happen to live in a 10 acre town, we can design the same line, follow all the best management practices, follow all the environmental rules, and go build it tomorrow. So after this last storm, we went to our legislators and others and asked, all we want to do is increase resiliency for existing customers. We're not talking about anything new for any new development or anything like that. Just help us get our lines rebuilt quicker. That's going through the legislature right now. We actually think we're going to have success there. And again, that'll just allow us to not have to follow all the same rules. We've never had a project turned down by Act 250. We follow all the same rules. It just allows us to build them quicker. If we get that, we plan to do all of Route 30, which is the main backbone between here and Brattleboro. It ties 3 substations together. That's the first thing you have to do. Keep the main lines on, right? And then from there, we start to work into the taps in the more rural areas like Route 100 up into Wardsboro, Pikes Falls Road, BH4A, which that doesn't mean much to you, but what that line is, it's the line that leaves Townsend Dam and goes out West Hill Road up into portions of Townsend, and it actually swings back around to Jamaica up top. Line 7 does more than that, but all the areas that we had the most trouble, we actually have plans on the books for resiliency rebuild in those areas, including, what's that?
I was just saying, if you go to the next
Yeah.
slide, it talks about the project.
And you know, those projects, the main lines, we plan to do what's called spacer cable. I'm sure some of you have seen some work we've already done to get a larger conductor to Ball Mountain Dam. It looks like a diamond that big up on the top of the pole. It's got over a 1/2 inch solid steel cable on the top. Stuff can lay all over it. We've had line crews telling us about car pole accidents where they break 2 poles, the wire drops down to 15 feet. It stays fine. They come in, replace the poles, grab the steel cable, put it back up on the top of the pole. Customers never knew about it. So, you know, I'm not saying it's never gone out. That would be this year, spacer cable. The plan is to run that where we don't already have storm hardened conductor, all through that backbone. That keeps the main line on. It also gives us what we call feeder backup, which, where the substations are tied together, if we lose one substation because of a transmission issue, this is large enough to carry that whole area. So we can pick up Townsend from Jamaica, we could pick up Jamaica from Townsend or Rawsonville. So that's the plan. And then where we planned it underground, which is some really rural areas where geologically we can, you drive around here, obviously you see a lot of river type soil, ledge, things like that, but wherever we can, we plan to do what's called cable and conduit. You know, our distribution rights of way are like 10 feet, right? Not only that, we don't want to cut 100 feet on the lines that run by your house and feed your house. You'd have no trees. So the cost to do that, it would be less expensive to do this, and we're going to rebuild it one way or another, either overhead with storm hardened conductor or underground with this. It all depends on what we can do with ledge and rocks and things like that.
Will you be getting into a little bit more of the, if it exists, the detail for the rollout of these projects?
The ones we're going to concentrate on first are all of Route 30 again, because if we keep the main line on, then right now, and we're gonna get to how we restore,
Okay.
but this is good though, interactive is good. Right now, if we don't have the main line on, it does us no good to go out to your house 8 miles from the sub, because if the main line's not on, if we fix it out there, we're gonna drive away and you're gonna be like, well, they didn't do anything. So we always have to fix the main lines first. That also usually picks up your hospitals, your water departments, anything like that. And then once we get that on, we can start moving out to the places like Route 100, Pike Falls Road, BH4A. Those are the next ones we're going to do. And then once we get those storm hardened and underground, then we can start to look at the smaller taps off those. So
Yeah, I'll just add, this may sound really operations heavy. I know we're using a lot of like utility language, but essentially we have plans for each of these zones. And so, and we have a slide actually that talks about the projects that actually impact here in Jamaica as well. But each, you know, so whether it's undergrounding, taking the cable and actually putting it under the ground so it doesn't matter what's happening with the weather, whether it's the storm hardening, so again, the steel so that the trees can just lay there, we can do the repair work, no one sees an outage. We heard recently from a customer in Athens where we had done storm hardening. She said she saw, 9-10 trees laying on the line and they still had power. So incredibly strong.
And the roads weren't blocked.
And the roads
it stays
weren't
up in the air.
Yeah.
So,
and so the cable and conduit underneath, and then we also, I think we said it on a previous slide and we'll talk about it, but we also have home battery energy storage, which we can talk a little bit more about as well. So anyway.
Yeah, for the most part, from the Townsend Dam up to the center of town here has been reconductored and also rebuilt with stronger cross arms as well as some spacer cable in there as well. I think our next step is to head south on Route 100 off at 30 and run spacer cable all the way up into the center of Wardsboro.
at the same time, we're looking, and I've spoke with a lot of people down here. I don't know if anybody here or any of you, but if it was Mike, it was most likely me. I've been talking to people about where we know there's another feed from another substation a mile away, things like that. We're looking at that constantly too. And if we can cut one line that's 200 poles into 3 sections fed from 3 different areas, those are all different things we're looking at too. And where you benefit there is instead of having a protector device open and knock out 200 customers, now you've got 3 feeds into it. It might be 75, 75, 75. One group of 75 is out, the other 150 stay on. So we are looking at a ton of things. The bottom left-hand corner slide is just what we've seen. That's from NOAA, the National Weather Service, of the increasing severe storms. You can see once you get past 2010, it really starts to jump. And even though we knew it was coming before that, if people are curious about the changing climate, come hang out in this area. We know, and it's not only this area. What's unique about this area is you're on the eastern slopes. So Any storm that's like a nor'easter, any storm, it's the way the winds spin, it pushes the moisture into the ridge line. It goes up in the air and it falls right back down here. That's why you always get the most snow. As the storm pulls away, you get the backside winds out of the northwest, and it downslopes off the western slopes down on the eastern side. So you're very unique, you're lucky to have that type of geography, but that is why you see more of damaging storms in this area, just because of the geography you have here. We see similar on the western slopes, but it seems to stay up higher. It doesn't seem to come down as low in elevation there.
Is it not working just to press the down button?
No, now it's working on the space.
There we go.
Before it was, and now
Yeah.
it's back.
So this is a picture of a grid style storage system. So we have what we call microgrids, where if we have a certain section of town or a certain section of vulnerable area, we can actually put in grid scale storage, and what will happen is something will open here on the line, something will open here on the line, and these batteries will keep that section of the grid up. We have a lot of this paired with solar, and you know, as long as the panels stay clear, this can go on indefinitely. The bottom picture is what some of you may have in your home already. They're 2 Tesla Powerwalls, which is a normal installation. Whenever we see a storm coming out like this, we let our customers with storage know, hey, heads up, we could be seeing outages from this storm. Please, we ask them to use your Powerwall so that you know it's gonna last. In other words, if you have an electric hot tub, maybe don't run it off your Powerwall if you lose power, things like that. We've had customers tell us they've lasted 8-9 days with these, using it for heat, refrigerator, things like that. Would you add anything to that?
No, the only thing I would add here is sometimes we hear from people about electric vehicles, which we incentivize, we have amazing rates for, we give away chargers for, and people will say, well, what about power outages? And what do I do? I have an electric vehicle, and the power of that battery within your vehicle, eventually vehicle to home, vehicle to grid will be able, it's like having 10 Tesla Powerwalls right there in your driveway, and can provide that sort of resiliency. So that's the future of resiliency as well, is thinking about how powerful that battery is and what it can do for your home backup.
Yeah, Ford Lightning today has a 100 kW battery. Those 2 batteries together are only 10 kW, and right now customers are stretching those 7 or 8 days. So think about what that can do once that's, right now the Ford Lightning is the only one that comes with that as part of the rig, but every single one of those vehicles will eventually be able to do that. These are the projects in the area that we're going to try to get to right out of the gate, and obviously we're going to add more and more to that once we start to, we need to get these done first, and then we'll start to move to the smaller taps. And just by getting these done first, the amount of customers out are going to be lower anyway. You keep the main line on. The main line out of the Jamaica sub, 2,700 customers, Don, is that?
Sounds right.
Yeah, so, and probably 70-80% of those are fed off the main line. And then you have some taps with 300 customers off them, things like that. So just keep that main line on, a lot more customers are gonna be on than, you know, we have a lot of lines out there that are only 20, 30 years old, the conductor's fine, but it's bare. And we're facing more and more severe weather, so we're getting more and more trees across it, things like that, which is what's knocking out the power, so.
I'll just add, you may hear us talk about resiliency zones or think about what that might mean. For us, resiliency is about power restoration. It's about making sure that the power stays on. And so it's part of our climate plan, and we have looked at, sort of across the state at all of our districts, looked at the number of power outages that certain towns have, look at the social vulnerability index through the CDC, and prioritize where we're going to be putting in these resiliency zones. So we have one in Brattleboro, that's a microgrid, which we talked about earlier. We have one in Grafton where it's actually, we're installing batteries inside people's homes to provide that sort of resiliency. So each year, 3 to 5 resiliency zones, GMP will be out in communities. going forward.
So Mike, just looking at the first 3 bullet points, their geographic descriptions, can you give us just a little bit of the flavor of what's going to happen in those geographic zones?
So the Route 30 will be the spacer cable, the triangular. In fact, you can see if you just drive along Route 30, there's probably 200 poles with flagging on them. And that's the design, you know, it's a little bit larger poles, different style conductor, it won't be a cross arm. And just the fact, a line worker said this to me the other day, is we talk about how strong it is, but just the fact you're reducing from 8 feet of exposure down to, they're only a foot, right? I think they're 12, so 12 inches of exposure now for something to hit it versus 8 feet. So that'll be all along Route 30. The Route 100 Wardsboro is the same thing, spacer cable all the way up into Wardsboro Village, and that also, a half mile up the road ties to Dover, so we're gonna look at bringing in some power from Dover to cut down on just the length is exposure, right? So if you're 15 miles from the substation, there's a lot of trees down here, and so we're not only looking to strengthen from the trees with the overhead storm hardened and underground, but we're also looking at everywhere we can to just shorten the length of power lines between your house and the substation. So, and then West Hill is the one that takes off near Townsend Dam, goes up into the National Forest area. And then we also, I don't think we have, Pikes Falls Road is another one we've been looking at. And again, if you drive it, you may think that there's nothing we can bury here, but we see things a little different, and the more we can get underground, the better off. We're actually talking to some companies in Vermont. This will be new to Dawn, but we've been looking for anybody with a ground penetrating radar. They're out there already. And we talked to Townsend about this too, where we're hoping in the shoulder of roads, that there may be some areas there where we can get the depth. It would be not in the travel portion of the road, but the shoulder, one side of the swale or other. It's already cleared, it's already, you know, if we can get the depth there, that's a great place to put it. And a lot, like take Pikes Falls Road, for instance. The houses are incredibly spaced out, right? So you don't need transformers every 200 feet. So you can just run it as far as you can get it, as long as we can get in the ground with it. So, and then where we can't get that underground, we would put the storm hardening overhead in there. But those are some of the areas. Is that what you meant? Like
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And again, this is in the first year and a half. We plan to continue to do that to as many areas as we can get to as fast as we can.
But all of these are budgeted and planned for,
Within the next year and a half, I would say. We'd love to have everything done by the next winter.
right,
I'm not willing to promise that yet because we gotta make sure we have all the materials and everything like that, so. But that's the goal.
okay.
Yeah, like the full designs there for Route 100 heading south, and some of the material's gonna start showing up in Crisosimo's gravel pit. All the poles are gonna show up there, a bunch of the wire, so we've already made arrangements with him to use that area as a layout area.
Are you replacing the poles or are you just adding more?
We're replacing the poles with bigger poles, thicker poles, so it'll be a lot stronger. I mean, there's a lot of large trees on Route 100.
And the plan is, we're actually gonna we're not gonna pick away at this slowly. We're gonna bid it to a contractor and have them just come in and get it done. So the goal is to get it done as quickly as we can. Like I said, we've been working on a lot of these for almost 5 years in some cases.
Excellent.
And that, we also have to get the amendment through too, which we're hoping within the next week or two. If we get that, that'll really open the door for us. Outreach, so I want to talk about this a little bit. So we do 3 or 4 different types of outreach. Obviously, we use social media when we see events coming in, trying to get it out there to our customers that, hey, we see this, we don't like what we see. Can you try to make sure you can do the most to help yourself be prepared in case there are outages? In this event, we had customers, we've visited just about every town in this area now, and we had customers telling us they couldn't get their doors open from their house or get their doors open to get into a car. So it became more than just a power outage thing. It was pretty much, I don't think we realized how close we came to almost a natural disaster here, but you know, it made us think we definitely need to check in on our neighbors, things like that. But we give a heads up to make sure people know what's coming, and we can't always predict every storm. Sometimes we've had things like called gravity waves where we weren't supposed to get 70-mile-an-hour winds and we did. Sometimes the storm stalls over you, and 18 to 24 sounds like a lot, but it sounds like nothing compared to 42 inches, I'm just saying. So, you know, the forecast, I just don't think the models, that's all they are, is models, right? And I just don't think they're keeping up with how things are changing so fast. So we try to get them all right, but there may be an occasion where even something could surprise us. Tiana has a team. You want to hear what your team?
Yeah, so that's a really good point from Mike. And one thing that we've heard, especially in this area of the state, is that, you know, we do our best to update social media or to put it on our app or those kinds of notifications. Well, cell service is not always available down here, and especially during a storm like we had, there were a lot of communication lines down as well. So, you know, a big part of my job is reaching out to town officials. We really appreciate all of the support from town officials as well to get the information out to their residents. We've met recently with Vermont Emergency Management to kind of talk through this because, as you can imagine, with just the scale of this storm, how many towns there were, how many people were impacted, you know, there's just simply not enough staff people to go out and check on everyone. And so we do that. So that's a big part of my job, is reaching out and saying, this is when we think Jamaica can expect to have power restored. I was talking to Mike on the way up here, way down here, and Jamaica was one of the hardest hit towns by a lot. Many of the folks that I spoke to, just, you know, the one road that we were just driving down, it was like there were 30 trees down to even be able to cut through to get to starting to like pick up the wires and things like that. So just to kind of give you a little more context for that. We also have, as I mentioned earlier, our critical care team, so that, you know, we have a team of about 10 folks that proactively reach out to people that require medical equipment, life-saving medical equipment. That's a list of customers that we keep. It's something that if that's something that you require or know somebody that requires that, just giving us a call is a way to kind of talk through with one of our customer service reps and get on that list. It's really important to know, though, that it does not prioritize your power restoration. As Mike was saying, it's really about us being able to reach out and say, do you have a plan in place? You are likely not going to have power for the next X amount of time. And also we ended up with all of the storms having to coordinate, in many cases, emergency services to check in on folks, just because of the depth of the, just how long the storm was lasting. So again, you know, we talk to people and people are like, no, I can see the branch on the line, you just need to come get the branch off the line. And
Which we have a great slide for this. We're all over the place, but we'll show it.
And so that's not how power, I wish that it was how power restoration works, but it's not. So it's not, that list doesn't get you power quicker, it just lets us know where you're at so that we can check in on you.
We have what we call an escalation line. Tiana talked about the critical care customer. So they will, all of our call center reps, anybody talking to the critical care customers, we actually listen for things that they tell us. We had one customer say, oh, I'm fine, I've got a propane heater in the house. And that's a trigger for us, right? So we instantly called the local emergency planners in that town, and they got a deputy fire chief to go over and do a CO2 test. So we're doing things like this through these whole events too, and it's good to have that open communication. I don't think we had to reach out for anything like that.
No, not here.
In Jamaica. In towns right adjacent to you, we did.
Yes.
But Tiana sends updates towns, if we can make sure you're all in those emails. And what it talks about is when we have a prediction tool, once the outages stop, that tell us when the last customer is in that area will be back on. The other problem with this event that we didn't talk about at first was for the first 48 hours of the event, we were taking as many outages. In other words, because it didn't stop snowing, it was supposed to be done snowing down here Tuesday morning. Dawn was yelling at us, it's still snowing, about 3 o'clock Wednesday afternoon. And what happened was we actually restored 25,000 customers during that 48 hours, but we lost 26,000, 25,000. So we literally, if you looked at our outage numbers, they just stayed the same. Everyone was thinking they're not even doing anything. And in reality, we restored 25,000 customers during that time frame. And then once where I was headed with that, I'm sorry.
I'm kind of following along, I'm liking it all, I don't know what's up. You had mentioned, and you guys together mentioned something that turned out to be a problem here in Jamaica, and I suspect elsewhere, and that was connecting, I'm the emergency management director here. You couldn't get a hold of me unless you used signal flares.
Yeah.
The cell was out, the computer was out,
Yeah.
and so I'm doing what I can, little I can, very little I can, to follow apart and other problems, but there's no way you could have reached me.
Right.
Because as soon as you guys got back online, then I could read all the little notes you guys sent me over the last 3 days that were all really useless now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any thoughts on bringing in, I know they've got, for hurricane, we had one here several years ago, but they have these portable cell towers. That I know it's not you guys' mission to keep the cell open. But it's all
sat phone.
yes.
Well,
I do wonder if Vermont Emergency Management has any access to things, because it's usually the state emergency management, like you see that in Florida and things like that, where let us take that one away and see if there's anything, you know, the other thing, there isn't any cell towers on generation or anything in this area, so.
There's one right across the street.
It stays on for maybe
Yeah.
a half hour, and then the batteries kick out.
Right.
But and since it's been on here all these years, I think that's the first time we lost it for any length of time.
No, it goes out, it goes out.
Does it?
But it didn't used to.
Didn't used to, because I'll tell you
Yeah,
what.
but now it does.
we,
Get old.
we did hear from Vermont Emergency Management, who we're continuing to kind of partner with and figure out, especially ahead of, you know, the next winter, how we can help everyone get a plan in place. But do you all have a LEMP, the local emergency management plan? Okay, great. So I think that we should figure out, and I don't know if it's necessarily, you know, GMP's job is to get the power back on. We often play other roles during storms just because we have, it's all hands on deck, and so I can call an emergency manager, or we can do those kinds of things, especially when you have a storm as big as what we had. But I think that, you know, towns also have to have plans in place to say, okay, if the emergency manager doesn't have access to a cell phone, it doesn't, I mean, how are we supposed to get communication?
Did you have internet? Could you get, so you couldn't even get emails?
No, nothing. So it's a great question, and I think we need to work with VEM on it. But I also, we've got to figure out what to do when it doesn't.
So it's essentially, it's an AT&T tower here. Verizon is also looking.
Yeah.
Don't want to spoiler alerts, could happen. But the issue is really that AT&T's responsibility is to have backup power, is that it's not sort of GMP's responsibility to make sure the tower has power. It's just trying to, just.
Well, in the same, I guess think about it in the same way as like your other critical infrastructure, so like town water or your, okay, so other critical, so even a warming shelter or a place like having backup for that is a really important thing to have.
Right. So for us, it's this building, and we have a generator.
Great.
Which was online a day later, but whereas AT&T is a private entity. Right, so it's not, it's infrastructure, but it's not municipal infrastructure. So I'm just sort of, kind of thinking it through like that. I mean, they kind of own their space there, and I don't know if it's that I don't know that GMP can force it on, force a requirement like that. Town can't, it'll be something to kind of think about, but that's really, they run out of power,
That's a good point.
when they're not getting power, so I think Tom just said, like, within a few hours, they're gone.
Starlink internet,
Oh, sure, there we go.
2,500 watt generator, big can of gasoline, and you can have internet the entire time.
For how much?
Come here and go to rides.
So, Starlink right now?
It's the exact same price as the hardline and a DSL internet for consolidated communications, $120 a month.
But it has its own unique generator associated with it, or any generator?
You just buy a generator and plug it in.
Oh.
Something to think about. Thank you, Brian.
After the March storm, I've changed my internet.
Starlink, right?
Yeah, you need a clear view to the northeast.
So just for the record, in that storm in the firehouse, we had the generator going and the heat was going through the whole time.
Right,
So we had that.
just no way to communicate.
Right.
So that's a warming facility as well.
Yeah, Brian.
Just to wrap up on your presentation, well, first of all, I want to just, I remember this guy from the December storm, he stood in my front yard, answered all my questions, very helpful, thank you, Donnie. Love to see all the storm hardening stuff, especially I live on West Jamaica Road, which is fed off.
Off Pikes Falls Road, you were just walking your dog.
Yes, I
That was us, in the walk up. Yes.
We have satellites.
No, we don't.
I know, that was a joke, these days, right?
Until this year, my Tesla batteries did a job, but this was a tough year, so
Yeah.
we definitely did some outages. But and each one of those, over the last 5 years, I literally would put like all my money on the fact that it was like 3 locations. There's like a couple on Pikes Falls Road, one on West Jamaica Road, where it's just that's where the tree falls every time.
Off the side of the bank, probably.
Oh, yeah. And it's like every time. And so I know like the hardening things, those are great, but is there any consideration through whatever funding for maybe some very targeted removals that could literally handle 80% of the problems?
So those are the exact type of areas we're talking about going underground. So in other words, just eliminate the issue. And, happy to follow up with Don on.
The side bank across from your house.
Yeah.
More Pikes Falls. Pikes Falls.
Yeah, Pikes Falls Road, when you go up 8 poles,
Yeah.
you can see where there's 30 trees that fell off that bank. That's the type of thing where I'm talking about, we're just not even gonna battle it anymore. And just go underground through there, they can fall all they want.
How are you gonna feed the homes?
Again,
You're gonna run it back to the homes too?
no, the plan is to get the main line, so we can keep the main line on underground. And then if an individual homeowner wants to bury and tap into the underground where we are, they can do that. But the goal is to, and again, we're not gonna be able to bury everything, but even if there's areas that we can't bury, if we can bury those conditional areas that you're talking about, that's the goal. So we'll still have some poles out there. If we come to an area where we don't need a pole, we'll put a pad mount transformer in. If you have an overhead service, we'll rise up there and tap into your overhead service. So the goal is to get the main line underground, not to go to everybody's house and bury the services to the
So it
house.
will be interesting because it's all exposed bedrock, all that schist bedrock.
Yeah,
Especially on that one corner on Pikes Falls where the 20 trees came down.
so that may be trying to go further
Yeah.
on the trimming. I hit this quickly, we're trying to go quickly here,
Thank you.
and we use a ton of forecasters, we actually have an outage prediction tool as well. We ended up with 3,000 outage events, 24 hours before this event, it told us 500. And again, I think in all that, the outage tool can only predict off the forecast that's available at the time. And what happened is I think it ended up, when it stalled, we had like 3 times more precipitation than it was predicting Sunday night. We also talked closely, National Weather Service in Bennington, and in Albany, and we have an even closer relationship with the one in Burlington. So we look at this stuff quite a bit. Next one, I do want to just hit the slide that shows restoration. This is, we actually had over 300 line crews here, which is 4 times our normal workforce. The damage was just so widespread from this that it still took us longer than we'd like. But we had them from, I think it was West Virginia, Quebec, Toronto, Ontario, New Brunswick. We don't normally bring crews in from as far as West Virginia, but you'll see on the next slide, there was another issue going on with this event. We're part of a mutual, like fire departments have mutual aid groups. We're actually part of, I think, the largest mutual assistance group on the Northeast. It's called the North Atlantic. And about 30 million customers are encompassed into that mutual aid group, and it's all of northeastern Canada, and you can see all the way down into West Virginia. So whenever we're hit, you've probably seen where we go help Maine, we go help New York City, well, they come here too, and it's a mutual thing. Maybe it's the last slide, but actually, can you go one more?
There we go.
That
the blue one.
one back. Next one.
Nope, forward.
It's a little delayed, Mike.
That's okay.
What you're saying.
Just one more and then you're
One
good.
more.
One more forward.
It's covered. Well, anyway.
I think you can
Can you move this?
not in Zoom, I can't hear you.
It's okay.
There, you could move it.
What it shows is that
All of the Northeast is, that's a mouse.
It is.
Okay.
These are nice.
That's why. She's not close to me.
There. I almost didn't dare touch it. So this is the same storm, as you can see, New Hampshire. This was like 8 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday morning. I think at that point we were around 20,000. We weren't even in the top 5. But Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and New York all ended up with more outages than we did. So the quick reaction from our neighbors just wasn't happening, which is why we had to go a little bit further away. Pretty much every single event I talked about this year, even the wind event last Sunday night that we prepared for, Maine ended up with over 50,000 people out. Luckily, we only had 1,500 out total. But the storms have become bigger and more regional, and all of the Northeast is dealing with the same thing. I think Maine ended up over 200,000 in this event. I think New Hampshire got up to 110. At peak, we were at 40. And there was about 98,000 affected overall in Vermont. So if you could go back to the... Yes, so this is the one I was talking about where we do a lot, we have that critical care list so that we can actually help those customers make decisions what's best to keep themselves safe. A lot of them think they're on there so that we're going to go to your house first to get it back on. And this slide is just to show you a little bit of why the physics of the grid just doesn't work that way. So we have transmission. The transmission feeds between substations. If that transmission is down, nobody on the distribution system or the substations are getting power. So we have to fix this first. So even though you may not see us in front of your house, trust me, there are crews working on what the first thing that's causing your outage, which may be 10 miles away on the transmission line. Once we get the transmission lines on, and those are, I think we had 3 faults, not 300. So we had 3 faults and only at one point, we can sectionalize too. So if we have a section of transmission out, we can sectionalize, bring everyone back on. We had one time when both sides went out, we quickly fixed it and got it back on. But we've got to get the transmission on first, then the substation, and then the main line that I talked about, the Route 30 corridor. We've got to get that main line on first before we can do any of the side taps out. Because if that's not on, again, it's just like not having the transmission on. We can fix this all we want, and it's not going to do any good. So what we do, we obviously work on this first, get that energized. It brings on the most customers all at once, and then we start to go out to the smaller taps. So that's why sometimes in an event like this where the damage is so widespread, if you say, well, we haven't seen somebody for 2 days, the trees in front of my house, most likely we're working to get these on. Or clearing roads. We first work to clear roads, and we know that we're thinking of ways in a widespread event like that to make sure we get to those even quicker. But that's the thing. We work to clear roads, work to get the main lines on, and then work out to the more rural areas.
I think this is a good opportunity to just to share. So you can see the power restoration, and you can, the first couple of days in this most recent storm were really truly spent just clearing hazards in many areas. Yes, we were restoring power in areas that were hit as hard, but we also had a lot of customers that were like, oh, I've got so-and-so that's just gonna cut this tree down the street, and under no circumstances should people be doing that. You know, if there's down wire, you stay away from it, you don't touch it, you don't ask somebody to plow through it, you don't drive over it. We're getting there as quickly as possible, and we know how tough it is, but there were, we need people to be safe during these times, and yeah.
A neighbor of mine, when our power first went out Tuesday, a bunch of trees fell down by it. There's a relay down here or something. You guys are always down there, even if it's bright and sunny, but, and my neighbor came up and said, do you have power? I said, no, we lost it about 20 minutes ago. And this guy wanted to know, so he cut the tree out of the way. And I'm like, I wouldn't do that. If I were you, and they got trapped coming back from the school.
Yeah.
And cut that big tree out, or just enough to get the truck to. There were wires down all over the place.
It's never okay to approach that.
No, even our crews are 4 years trained, rubber gloves, everything. They still have to test and ground the line before they can even touch it. So yeah, nobody under any circumstances should be doing that.
Right. So, any more questions? Thank you. This was a lot of information, but, and we have a great attendance here. So thank you everyone for coming. So we're gonna post the PowerPoint. Anything that you need from the select board other than just pushing out the information that you've given us today?
I'm really happy to meet you all face to face and to have the contacts. I'll follow up with you to let you know who all I send my information to, just to make sure I have the right contacts.
Great.
And then I think we should just continue to talk through, you know, what the plan should be around Jamaica, you know, ahead of next winter, the best way to get in touch with you during that time.
Yeah, just to follow up with Vermont Emergency Management about.
Yes, we'll do that.
The other thing I would say, anything you can do when we are trying to build these projects to help us, that would be wonderful. You know, we have some towns that don't want us to bury it along the edge of the right of way, and we try to explain the benefits of it. Not only does it keep the lights on, but if it's underground, it's not gonna block access or things like that. So, you know, anything we can do as we come to towns, Route 30 is a state highway, so we'll actually be dealing with the state, but obviously we'll be talking to individual landowners as we set goals, things like that.
So any thoughts about putting power underground through towns?
Feet down in the road.
So, I'm glad you asked that, because I need to, yep, so we have figured out a way to do the rural areas more cost effectively in comparison to rebuilding overhead. The reason for that is because, like 7 slides back, we showed the underground up here in the corner. They make cable and conduit where we used to have to glue 10-foot sticks of conduit together for miles and miles. Now we have a reel where we can come in with 2,700 feet and you just reel it off and put it in the ground. It's a bigger conductor than you have right now, so plenty of room for growth to electrify, but it will not carry substation to substation. So the Route 30 wire we're putting up is really big. It's really big, large conductor, and we have not gotten to a place where we can cost effectively do that type of line underground for anywhere near.
So I guess, so the increase of size of poles will be bigger through town here?
I looked at on.
The center of town's all, like, pretty much from the Jamaica substation all the way up to the center of town. We've increased the size of everything. So those cross arms are bigger, the braces on the cross arms are up to like transmission spec, and then the conductor itself is bigger.
And you have the spacers, you're using the spacers
So the
as well?
spacer cable,
Or that's-
that's further down, like towards the, like the damn diner, right in that area.
Mhm.
That's all being reconducted spacer cable.
And everything north of here is all flagged, or excuse me, west, north.
It's west, but it's north.
What we call it north end. That's targeted for spacer cable.
It's all flagged,
Yeah, so that's targeted,
But not through town?
for Rossville. Yeah, I mean, there's probably projects in town as well to
Okay.
upgrade the size of stuff in the center of town if we're trying to connect all the substations
Well,
together.
yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions, any team over here? All right, well, we've kept you a long time, but it was super, super helpful, so,
No,
yeah,
thank you. Again, we know that. Thanks for hanging in there.
All
Yeah,
right.
thank you so much for having us.
Yes, so I guess it's infrastructure day here at the select board, because our next discussion is with our road foreman. So you can stay where you are, or
Get out.
keep, run, don't hide.
Yeah, so if you ever need to contact me, like you got tree down in the roadway or something along there.
Thank you so much, thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, thanks for having us.
Hey, Greg,
Yes, ma'am.
can we forward that PowerPoint to me?
Yeah, well,
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I know, folks already ready.
Alright, so Keith, introduce yourself if you don't mind.
Keith Haas, the road foreman.
Hi, Keith.
Where do you want to start, Ray?
Well, no, I thought, one was a good opportunity to come in and connect with these guys from Green Mountain Power, but also just, try to get more regular update on things, so, I mean, I guess maybe walk through where we're at with projects you're working on now. I mean, we certainly have some big projects that a lot of people are aware of, culverts and bridges and whatnot, but.
Okay, one project is the other side of South Bill's getting paved this summer. There's a 9 culvert replacement job that's gonna be contracted out. They're fairly deep culverts that our excavator won't necessarily do all of them. So that's getting done. I know, I'm not sure where it's at, but in front of your house is,
Water Street.
yep, is getting, the gravel's getting removed from the river, and I don't know where that was left off. as
We're gonna
far
meet
as-
with, Scott Jensen, right? Scott Jensen, the water resources person from the state, later this month to, just kind of go back into the field, so to speak, again, and just kind of evaluate how it changed maybe over the winter and kind of keep that project moving forward for the summer, to make that stream bank a little bit more along, that stream bank along Water Street a little bit more resilient.
I think we look at the riprap too.
And move the water stream.
We're gonna move the stream, my understanding is gonna move this hump over. We're gonna move the channel. So
Yeah.
right now, it's coming far and around the riprap there, and it'll move, so it's
Yeah,
back.
that big wheel with gravel's getting moved.
There was talk about making the riprap go out at a 45-degree angle, about 10 feet out into the river, or the brook there, because it's just, you got that much more.
To keep
It
pushing
has to
this
wash out
water
before
towards
it's
that.
That's where it was left.
Yeah,
That's what was left in Terry, yeah.
So that's part of it, we're trying to get back up to speed with that, partly with,
Thank you.
Terry was kind of the point person on that, and now Mike is, has a relationship with the, water resources people too, so we're more or less just bringing that back to the surface again, I mean, no pun
but the
intended, but.
permit for the gravel, we already have.
Okay. Now, you mentioned it the last meeting is going to be live.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know who's doing it yet, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah, then we got, there's the Pikes Falls, culvert replacement project.
Yep,
That's slated and scheduled for beginning of June. A lot of the, I mean, obviously the plan's done, a lot of the right-of-way easement stuff's been done. There's still some movement, I think, or necessary movement for some of the utilities. Green Mountain Power's moved their stuff onto a new pole, but there's still Comcast and Consolidated to move. So a few little points on that, but that'll start beginning of June roughly. Pikes Falls Road, I mean, we'll definitely get a notice out when we have a definite date, but Pikes Falls Road will be closed for roughly a month. We'll put in a 60-foot.
Good to get that out
Big
now,
box
yeah.
culvert basically going in there. I mean, it's,
And we have a contractor already
Yes.
retained for that?
Yep.
Okay.
I guess the big, I mean, I kind of go, maybe these are the glory projects, I guess. But then we have, we're moving ahead, the Jamaica State Park Bridge. The state was down here doing, right-of-way easement types of negotiation, or they're gonna start that.
Butter meetings.
Butter meetings. That project's slated to not really get off the ground until the end of next summer, which tentatively would be when the temporary bridge would be put in. Some work started in the next fall, so this is fall of 2024. The bridge, major work on the bridge would be done in the summer of 2025. So that's what's going on over there. And I guess maybe just an update or we'll take questions.
When will Pikes Falls be closed?
Roughly the beginning of June,
At what point?
For a month?
for roughly a month.
Okay. I just use
So-
that every pretty
You'll
much.
be able to drive it as far
That's
as,
where the three culverts we had problems with.
Yeah, so it's the middle culvert, basically. Obviously, local traffic can get up and down to their house, but you won't be able to pass through without going around. And we'll mark that and talk to all the fire departments, all those types of things.
So how does that coincide, just to push out information, how does that coincide with the paving project on South Hill? Just because the two projects are kind of geographically.
Paving project is just now going out to bid. So we don't have, we want to get the culverts done fairly quickly so they have time to settle
That
before
should
we
be
pave.
done.
That will have some disruption to the traffic, but more daily
yeah,
disruption.
just daily for maybe 4 days.
I see.
I mean, it'll be as each culvert gets done,
Right,
depending on how big a culvert it is, how much it will be impacting the road.
okay.
Yep.
Any news on the concrete bridge on Depot Street? Speaking of bridges.
No. Basically, it hovers around, just like the State Park Bridge, it hovers in this
It's about
range of whether it's how high.
maybe 6 years out before. I serve on the transportation committee, and it's a thing I could continuously bring up, like we had another member who helped, if you ask me, helped
Sure,
get
yes.
some attention called to the State Park Bridge, but before Irene happened, that bridge it would be close to beginning some work done on it, and what would happen unless the town paid for it, you'd lose the old sides, and it would just become a new, like Route 30 bridge. That's where it was headed. When Lou was on the board, it was like 4 years out and moving up, and then everything changed. And another thing when Irene happened, I don't want to get stuck on that bridge, but if that bridge gets replaced, the engineers were saying that pier should get out of there to help save Water Street the next time. That's really jammed some things up. But anyway, that's all I know about
Yeah.
that bridge.
So it'd be re-engineered to do
We could ask more about it.
Yeah, I think by having Mike and Andy are our reps to the Wyndham Regional Commission, and their party or their fairly significant influence to
20%.
the state as far as beach
They got
rates.
about a 20% influence on, 20% of the year.
Yeah, but you can imagine, there's a lot of bridges in Vermont, there's a lot of municipalities similar to us that have other needs, and so it's always just kind of rattle them a little bit and make sure that they know we're here.
Technically, it's an unnecessary bridge, right? Because if you take that bridge out, you can still get around on Water Street to the, so it's
It
not.
lowers
you don't
the
really
rate
break
in
it
the
way out.
Right. Go ahead.
Can I just ask Keith, how much, sitting here listening to all that, how much did that raise Kane with the Jamaica roads, that storm and trying to clear it? And I just want to say that,
You didn't really, it's just you couldn't,
Right.
and it was right here. It wasn't on the north end of the town. It wasn't so much in East Jamaica, it was just, yeah, in South Hill and West Jamaica. And once you get a few trees down,
right,
and they've got wires pinned, I'm just glad we didn't have a truck up in there stuck. He did come out and he bulldozed through because he knew it was gonna happen, he saw the trees falling. So he just kind of bulldozed his way out and probably caused as many problems as the trees did. But he wanted to get out of there so at least the truck didn't sit, 4 days up in the woods. Because that would have happened. And it happened fairly early.
Right.
It's like at 5 in the morning or something. But yeah, it was a pain.
That storm, I saw you guys at 3:30 or 3:45 at my house, and like some other towns, the road crews couldn't stay ahead of it.
Yeah.
People were calling me on Turkey Mountain Road. You know, these guys waited till there was so much snow, but everybody had that trouble. I just want to stick up for, you know, or not that's a bad way to put it, but other towns couldn't stay ahead of the snowfall and the trees being down.
It really started to come like at 3 in the morning. I mean, we planned to start at 3, thinking there'd be a foot of snow.
Right.
But
So,
if there was a foot of snow, we started, plowed out a road, and come back, and there's another foot. So that you never really could catch up. I guess the only thing about it is the mess. There's still a big mess. There's brush everywhere. The ditches are full of it. And we've been working on that, and that takes a while.
that's what I was kind of getting at.
I guess the other nice thing is that we've had somewhat of a gentle mud season and gentle spring event season. There's been, you know, last weekend or 2 weekends ago, some significant rain that caused some culverts problems, but they've been out getting, at least in the amount of time, 4 or 5 years that I've been kind of on the select board, seems like you're a little bit more further down the road, so to speak, of these little summer type projects and not winter recovery still.
Yeah. I mean, some years are a lot harder than others. You don't really start summer until the beginning of July just because you're fixing what happened in March and April.
And the roads are dry now, they've been out grading. I know Mike and I and Keith walked some section, we're starting to redo some culvert inventories to try to prioritize some stuff, try to make it a little bit more systematic as far as identifying needs, updating our culvert maps and our road maps to try to throw resources at them if needed. So I guess, I mean,
Those would be great to post as well on the website once they're available.
what is they?
The map, the updated maps. Just because it gives people a reference, they can actually, if there's an issue, they've got something they're looking at to say, this is what I'm seeing.
Today we went out and walked and there's that culvert inventory, which was probably, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
We walked a section of road that on the map, showed 3 culverts, and there's really 8 in there.
Right.
So, and we walked about 1.5 miles or 2 miles worth of road, and there's 20 culverts.
Right.
For 1.5 miles out of a 60 road. So, if you guys are aware of things, and we are certainly aware of a lot of them, but bring those forward too.
Yeah.
Can't get them all, but we try to prioritize them.
I mean, I guess the other thing, if anybody knows anyone who wants to work, we're short a guy. And it's gonna become critical because the guy we used last winter is not an option for this winter. So.
Yeah, so I don't know if everybody knows, but Richard had retired last fall, and we did a brief search without being able to find anybody, and felt that it would better serve the town and the roads and the rest of the equipment, rather than hiring somebody the day before they went out and plowed. We contracted with a 4th person during those critical time storm needs. That seemed to work pretty well. But as Keith said, it's that we may find another person like that, but summer is also more critical to have a 4-person team. They can work in pairs, and one could haul gravel, one could grade, and one could ditch and haul.
So should we ever?
We have.
Yeah, you want us to advertise?
We are posting it. It's
We are
getting out
posting
there
it?
now again, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But everybody's looking, so it's gonna
Do
be
we have
fun.
a job description for the website already, or not yet?
We had done one last fall.
Okay.
Just kind of touched it up a little bit.
Okay. Is it still up?
I don't know that it's still
Okay.
up. It's something we've been just currently working on this past week or so.
All right, great.
Yeah.
Great. No, I just, dealing with the other job
There's a lot of
posting,
jobs.
it's just the sooner you get it up, the better.
Right.
Any other questions for Keith, or Keith, did you have anything else? All right, well, thank you, everyone, and thank you, Keith, for coming.
Thank you.
It was super helpful to be available for questions. So this is not only the infrastructure night, it's the night of presentations. Thank you. The Water Street Committee is here. We have some slides. We've been seeing some activity, so very exciting.
It's
up on that computer.
Oh, it's on.
You just seen it, thank you. You want to click that, would be great.
I did quick.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Only in an
Feel like it's the old days.
Only in an unofficial press.
He's only doing it for Jackman, he's saying.
Andy disappeared.
Bill Cubs,
He's coming back, I take it. They're over there.
Oh.
Andy, coming?
over there.
On top of that black thing, there's one.
Thank you. I left my water bottle in the car.
Might want to wipe the dust
I
off.
don't know if you want that.
That's all right, I like dust.
They're several months old.
Coffee stain.
It's someone put it here.
Black coffee. Stand.
Give me a little rest.
Tom, here, look at the slides for
You have a choice. Old cup of water or a bottle?
No, that's from Irene. Do not drink that.
Oh, that young, huh?
It's unbelievable. No.
Disintegrates.
It's good for washing, but don't drink it.
Yeah, don't drink
Those little ones you got from Irene that I bought them back then, they've been sitting here long enough.
It's gonna taste like plastic, yeah.
I brought it down during the storm so people could at least use it for washing.
Exactly. Good for washing stuff
That's why it's there.
I'll give it even for your pets.
I would make sure Jack did.
I'll get started.
Thank you, Jackie.
I take it, Andy, we'll come back in a minute. I'm Jackie Brown, the chairperson of the Water Street Land Use Committee, and I'll make this presentation pretty short and sweet because we've made some really great strides and things are going along really well. So I just want to update everyone as to where we're at. Ann Connor is on the committee with me. She put together this presentation, so we'll use that to carry forth the conversation. This is the parcel of land that we're talking about on Water Street. I think most everyone's familiar with this parcel where 4 homes existed that were decimated in Tropical Storm Irene. So the town has owned this property for the last 11 years, and the committee was formed to try to make good use of the land and do something to preserve it and make it something that the town could be proud of. So, carry on, Mr. Colbert. Background is about 2¼ acres of land on Water Street. When I moved down to the Water Street, after having lived in Jamaica for several years, I approached the Selectboard to see about what we might do with the land, especially right after the 10th anniversary of Tropical Storm Irene. We went forward with some plans, and in 2022, the Selectboard asked that we come up, that people who are interested in this plot of land come forth with some more formal presentation as what we thought would be best use for this space, which hadn't really been, kept on over the years. So a committee was formed in 2022, and it was myself as an adjacent landowner. Erica Bowman was brought in, who's a landscape architect, who's been a really great wealth of information and help in this. Ann Connor, who among other things is a grant writer, so she's been really valuable with her writing skills and general smarts. And then Kate Ullman is on the board as the select board liaison, so that's been really helpful in moving the project forward. So what we decided to recommend to the select board is to keep the land as natural habitat, not do anything real fancy with it, but just make it something that the town could be proud of and a nice place to pass by. So the three parts of our plan were to remove invasive species from the site and create a pollinator meadow in the front of the lot. Beautiful wildflowers and a robust community for pollinating insects, birds, and such. And then we suggested retaining the heavy vegetation in the back of the lot to allow wildlife to pass through and also to maintain privacy for neighbors who have that as a priority, and to also just be careful about making sure that our plans didn't interfere with any flooding or any sort of disturbance to the local community. So where we're at now is on the next screen. Through all of our work, we've had a lot of meetings on this one little parcel of land, and we've really kind of focused our intentions on creating a pollinator-friendly ecosystem. And we have discovered that a lot of communities in the state of Vermont and across the country are really trying to promote pollinator-friendly habitats because they're just good for the environment and because their populations are being reduced through a variety of factors. So we're really excited about creating an environment that's friendly to pollinators and has the benefits of adding beauty to the community and pulling people together to work on a sustainable and environmentally friendly project. Next. We've been engaging the community in this effort. I think we're starting to get a lot of enthusiasm and support for the project. On the Selectboard, the Jamaica Elementary School is participating. My son is a certified outdoor educator, and he'll be presenting to an educational program on the importance of pollination to the school kids, actually this Friday. So we're excited about that. We've just started building more and more support through articles in the local papers and through establishment of a Facebook page, an Instagram page. So we're starting to build more and more enthusiasm as all the plans kind of gel. We've also made sure that we've worked with neighbors to address issues that they've had. So we're making sure that everyone's happy about the project as it goes forward. We've also gotten donations secured from locals as we go along with our project. Go ahead, Tom. One thing we're doing, and I think a lot of this has to do with neighbors' concern for their wells, since we are bringing in fertile manure, organic fertilizer onto the land. Neighbors were concerned about whether or not there would be any water contamination with the manure. Erica Bowman in particular, does not think that's a concern given her knowledge on these kind of projects. But even so, we want to make sure we address concerns, so we are paying for water tests for the neighbors. Prior to the procedure, we're putting up barriers between the garden plots and the neighbor's property, and then we're allowing secondary testings after the work is done to make sure that there are no problems. And we're doing outreach right now. We've been kind of building this and going through the process and trying to figure out dates for when people can come together to work on the project. We had a contractor who was scheduled to take out the invasive species and to start preparing the land next month in June. But given all the heavy rains, he had some time in his schedule where this project made sense to jump on, because the ground was fertile and lended itself to taking out the invasives. So the contractor, John Trevino, came in last Friday on short notice and prepared the land. So if anyone goes down Water Street, they'll see that the land is in really good shape, looking better than ever, and is prepared for the work that will follow. So now we're in a place where we can invite people to come and start doing the hands-on work with community members. This screen is actually kind of appropriately muted because it's about dates for community events, and I think that we may revisit them because Trevino, the contractor, did work early. We might move around the dates. We're looking for volunteers to work the land on a series of Saturdays soon. The committee is meeting in 2 nights, and we will peg down
An
those
updated
dates.
presentation to Sarah so she can post the new dates.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're meeting in 2 nights, and we'll peg down those dates for. There'll be primarily 3 dates. One will be preparation of beds, and well, first. Excuse me. First, we're having a volunteer come in and churn over beds, rototill beds, and then we're dumping manure, which has been donated by the Schmidt family, who's a horse farm on South Hill Road. And then we'll have volunteers come in, and well, first we're putting up the hay bales or irrigation fencing, just to safeguard any potential runoff to neighbors. That'll be one Saturday, and then raking in all the manure and getting rid of any big rocks will be a second Saturday. And then the big day everyone's looking forward to is actually planting flowers, which we've been really working towards. We're going to be planting over 2,000 starter plants of about, 20 or 30 different species of biodiverse native plants in this area. So those all of those dates and needs will be posted on social media and through other means.
So this slide, when you redo the dates, may be in white. Or right, exactly, although it's a very pretty picture.
The budget, when we first put it together between hard costs and in-kind donations, was at about 10,000 plus. The select board generously pledged on the land that they own to cover about half of those expenses, which was great. And so we were charged as a committee to raise funds necessary for the hard costs and then get volunteer and in-kind donations for as much as we could. And we're in pretty good shape, almost to where we need to be. Aon wrote 3 grants. One didn't fit the bill for what the grantor was looking for. The New England Grassroots Fund did give us $1,000 with no strings attached, really. I mean, there are things they're looking for. They want community engagement. So that's great. I reached out to an organization called Be the Change, which is an organization up in northern Vermont, which is looking to create a pollinator garden in every town in Vermont. So they were excited to see what we're doing here and gifted us $500. And then we've raised money from individual donors, which is bridging the gap and bringing us almost to where we need to be for hard costs. In addition to that, we have in-kind donations of note from the Schmidt family with the horse manure. And Tommy Dano is actually hauling that manure over at a very generous fee, for a very generous fee. The Dotford family, who lives on Water Street, has an artesian well, lucky them, not far, so they're loaning access to their water, which will go behind our 3 properties, including the Tolberts, to get to the lot. So we just need to purchase hose, but we'll have a source of water to really secure the potential success of the Wildflower Meadow. Erica Bowman's company is donating plants as well as all of her valuable time. Jim Ryan is doing some of the rototilling at no cost. Michael Longo came in, and after the March storm, one big maple limb fell and one big birch tree fell on the property, and Michael came in and cleared out those heavy logs, which was great. And more volunteers are coming forth, so we're in pretty good shape. Very good shape. The one thing that we asked of the select board as we, started kind of clearing the land and starting to purchase rates and thinking about hoses and such, we realized that there is a really nice garden shed that was formerly owned from the house that's closest to the Tolberts. And it's nice, and we'd love to use it and kind of keep something on the land from
So
former.
it was the Morrison's property there.
The Morrison's property. It's I don't know. I think it was either a chicken coop or a garden shed, but it's in good form, and it would be really nice for us to be able to put some tools in that, and the hose and such, just so we have a place for tools as we go about the process of raking and weeding and such, and then storing hoses and such off season. But this is your land, so
I'll put it on for the next meeting. I'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay, okay. And for anyone out there in Brattleboro public television land, we are still a little short financially, so finances are always helpful. And they can reach out to me or the town as to how to make donations. We also are looking for hay bales in case anyone has any of those in their back barn. We need garden supplies and volunteers. We have a Facebook page, Jamaica Pollinators is how you find the Facebook page, and that will have information about what's going on. And we're really happy how far it's come. Yeah, it's just one little plot, but I think it's really special for this town to be doing something like this. And we're really excited.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions for Jackie? Thank you. A lot of work in that presentation too. Thank you both. And it was very exciting, I think, for a lot of people to see the work that happened early. So
thank you.
So I'll close out. So if we could have the updated PowerPoint when it's done, and then I'll put on a formal notice on the next meeting, so we can.
I'll keep that PowerPoint for now, because when
it's updated, if you'll send it to Sarah, she can put it on the website. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Especially because you'll have dates where you're looking for volunteers, and also information in terms of what you're looking for. It's just,
Okay, cool, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
I know. Thank you. All right. So I'm actually going to, I realized when I set up the agenda, there's 2 topics that relate specifically for the Memorial Library. So for the folks that are here, we'll talk about the proposal for the Poet Laureate and the survey issue kind of together as one. So whoever wants to start.
I'll go ahead and start because it's the easiest. I think it's the easiest.
Right, please introduce yourself.
My name is Michael Connor, and I'm one of the trustees on the library board. And at the last board meeting in April, which by the way was National Poetry Month, it was brought up that the town of Jamaica needs a poet laureate. And it was deemed appropriate for the library to bring this issue up, as the library exists for literacy of the town folk, and we support the literary arts. So we thought we could ask the town select board to authorize us to conduct a competition to name a poet laureate for the town of Jamaica. We could just go ahead and do it and say it's the town library's poet laureate, but that's a little, dated. So I'm not asking for any money. I'm just asking for the authority to act on the town, asking for the Board of Trustees to have the authority to act for the town to name a town poet laureate by competition.
So it's not, I think it's new, I happen to know what a poet laureate is, but not everybody does. Do you mind just kind of sharing what that means, who you're looking for, what would be offered and what that means?
Sure. Poet laureates are essentially designated as literary, artistic representatives of the population of the town. They often go to readings where they recite with other poet laureates. In fact, I was at one 2 weeks ago in a small town in New England where there were 4 town poet laureates. If Jamaica decides to do this, Jamaica will be the second town in Vermont to have a town poet laureate. There is a state poet laureate. I think the very first one was a guy named Robert Frost, I think is what his name was. So there's a great tradition in Vermont of poetry, and it would help support, I think, the idea of the arts and literacy in the town. If the town would decide to raise up a person to represent us, we're hoping to get it done by the time of Old Home Days, so that there could be perhaps a poem recited about Jamaica by the town's poet laureate. That's a goal. Hopefully we can make that, but in case we can't, I believe there's a birthday coming up or an anniversary. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah,
what it was.
anniversary.
Yeah, anniversary. So at different events, public events, poet laureates are often asked to recite on behalf of the town.
Would this person be a resident?
Resident,
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
So not Bob Dylan.
I know we can poet laureate, that's the only poet laureate I know, besides Robert Frost.
Right. So I'm going to make a motion and then we can have further discussion. So I make a motion that the select board authorize the Jamaica Memorial Library to act as the trustees to seek out and select and appoint a poet laureate to represent the town of Jamaica. Second? Great. Any discussion, questions?
I'd just like to thank you for asking,
Here.
Well, this reminds me of the name of the town, and you guys are the elected.
Well, the library kind of stands on its own on some things, it seems.
Well,
That was my first impression too, like, go for it, but the
Like, we
elevated is
got some news about something the other night, and I'm like, really? Oh, that's good, I didn't know that. But I know that you guys have, I just appreciate the courtesy of that, and I think it's very, it sounds like a real cool thing, though.
Yeah.
I think it's
It
great to
does.
be at a town level and only be the second one.
And like,
Yeah.
it's like the guy behind you or something, is he a candidate?
Correct. No, that might be limericks. He'll be the limerick laureate.
so there's a proposal in a second, right?
Yes.
Yes, we've had a
We're in
proposal,
discussion.
and we're in discussion, so if there's any further questions or discussion, if not, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Terrific. Thank you very much.
Nice.
So the next point, I think Greg and I will both speak a little bit to that. Greg, I'm going to ask you to start first because of your knowledge about the situation at the Memorial Library. The town, as many of you know, owns various properties, one of which is the lot on which we are sitting right now. The other is the library. The library sits on an old lot. These are old, almost organic, physical entities of real property, and they have some quirks. So first I'm going to let Greg talk about the Jamaica Memorial Library and why it probably makes sense for the town to commission a survey.
So what started this for us was there's money that's coming down from the feds for grants for small rural libraries. In particular, one of the grants is directed towards the actual physical structure. So we've been in discussions in the group. As of the 15th of April, we had to have a needs assessment put in, which just gets us in the queue for the grants. The next deadline, I think, is at the end of September when you have to apply for the grant. They suggest in the paperwork that the board, basically you have to prove that you own the property. So I thought, okay, I go look at the deed because the library was transferred to the town in 2013. When I read the deed, it's the wrong piece of property. It's the property that was up on Main Street where the library was in 1934, before it moved here in 1955. So basically, the town has a deed for a piece of property it does not own and doesn't have a deed for the property it does own. So, I went back into all the old volumes to the original District 2, was originally an 1830 deed. There's a subsequent extension of the property in 1847. So I've saved time when we have a lawyer or whoever do this, I can direct them to the page and number and all that. But when you talk about people in town with their property lines, they have very set ideas of what they are. And so what I'd like to have the town do is empower us to get a survey of the property. And once we have that survey done, then we can have a corrective deed drawn up. From that point, then we can move forward with the grants.
And we can record the Mylar of the survey.
Exactly.
Terrific. So I'll give a quick 2 cents before I then recite a motion, which is very similar for this property. We do not have a survey, except one that's quite old, and does not show this building, does not show the well. It's missing certain key physical attributes, which would make this potentially fail for a grant, particularly with respect to the well. Second of all, we do have some encroachments that are happening, which by and large, this is Jamaica, we're pretty relaxed, but we are, despite the fact that it's municipally owned, we are subject to adverse possession, and we're getting up there in years. So we just need to know as a sort of a, good hygiene where our boundary lines are, and be in a position to beautify where necessary. To combine the two surveys together, since we're so we could have one site visit in essence for both locations. So it kind of presents a good opportunity to tack this one on, although it had been completely independently, we had been thinking about doing this. Terry and I had been thinking about doing this for quite some time. So I would like to make a motion that the board approve the commission of a survey for both the Jamaica Memorial Library lot as well as the lot on which the town office sits for recording. In the case of this deed, there's no corrective deed that needs to happen, but we would record the Mylar, and then to also actually ensure a corrective deed for the Memorial Library as well as recording that Mylar. Do I have a second?
No second.
Okay. With that, you've gotten some real background. Any discussion among the board or the public? Any questions?
Do the adjacent landowners of the library know that we're gonna survey?
One of them is on board, so she's very aware.
How about next door?
I'm pretty sure the talk tree is working. But yeah,
there are only
but
two.
I wanted to get you to know what's actually happening before I start approaching people in any official manner.
I believe there are only two, and that's Clara Robinson,
Yeah,
who's
that's
on the
what I
board.
mean.
Yeah,
Right, yeah, and then the church, and, yeah.
Yeah.
Church.
And we know, at the church, we know about it.
There's a library in the way.
Yeah.
If your neighbor surveys their property, it helps you too, because
Yes.
it makes that distinct line, so I
Right.
can't see a neighbor being upset if you surveyed your property.
Exactly, I can tell you that if there's any question about where a boundary line resides, that can have a significant negative impact on the value of your property. Knowing where the line is
That's what I mean.
generally helps.
Well, I mean, we want to bushwhack the Robinsons, or, you know.
As I said, she's on the
Okay.
board, so she's,
Oh,
I
okay.
made this presentation to them before I came to you.
Right,
Excellent.
right.
Does it make sense? I mean, at first I didn't see the collective reason to do them both together, even though they independently should be done, but does it make sense to kind of say, what about the bank building? You know,
Oh, interesting.
because it's same thing may exist there, village, old town.
I
Maybe
don't
it's not
know.
worth doing, but maybe just.
You know what, so I still want to stick with the request for
Yeah,
an
right,
approval for
sure.
these two, but I will, take a look and see what surveys there are with respect to the other town properties. I think that's excellent, that's an
And maybe, I
excellent.
don't wanna overdo it and say, okay, it's
No,
like
it's really
$10,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just Sarah has to check to see, that deeds are in good shape and also to see whether there are surveys of record, because there may be.
Yeah, see how much these two are,
Right.
how much they cost.
Right.
Yeah, these two are definitely.
I think we should anticipate that it's gonna be in the vicinity of $4,000 for the two. Could be more, but I think we could reasonably get by with that based on experience and some conversation. So, any further discussion on this one?
Just, what do you mean about encroachment here on this building?
So there's some debris over here
Okay.
which is actually on our property.
Okay.
And it makes a conversation a little bit less stressful if we know exactly where that line is.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, Paul.
I've got some photographs, we did this a few years ago, before our line, it's pretty jaggedy right here. And at the time, there was some trade-offs, somebody took a piece of this and we gave them a piece of that, and it's kind of a weird line.
Yeah, we've seen the pins.
Yeah.
So, yes, it is odd, it's odd.
And I think the parking area too, I mean, where does that end? And where is
Exactly, and where the easement is.
Easement for the
there's-
septic and.
Yes, exactly. All of that would, those features would be on.
As a citizen, I would like my town to know what my town owns.
Exactly, I know. That sounds like we probably made, you know what I mean? But it's just, Vermont is a unique state to practice real estate line, I can tell you firsthand. So I'm not surprised that this is where we are, but we have, kind of a confluence of events, and this is a good chance to get our hygiene, be a little more hygienic. So, any other questions? This is a great discussion, thank you. So with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you very much. So that takes care of those two. And then we have now the, Mike is up. We have the approval of our transfer station certification application.
Yeah.
Right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
I'll be in touch.
Okay, please, great, thank you.
The transfer station's pushing right out of the building.
I know.
I will say, I've spent almost 6 months on this endeavor. It was more than I expected, and the more I started peeling the onion back, I realized that I had involved many folks in doing it. But I did involve the Solid Waste Management District in Wyndham, Ernie, who works up at the facility, and others kind of locally as to what to do in kind of addressing the issues there. But the plan encompasses both the certification plan, the application that you helped create. The management district wanted us to create a facility management plan, which I also added, which I wasn't versed in. Because we're looking at improvements for the plan for that site, I looked at looking at the site in terms of addressing the elevated dumpster locations and the hydrostatic pressure with the blocks pushing the wall or the timbers to the roof section. and some other areas. We also looked at the possibility of converting the attendant building to have a fully functional approved toilet facility. We're going through the WW permit for that. And we've got the butter letters ready to go out. I've got a public notice letter. These will all go kind of with the blessing of the select board to take that next step. There is a review that goes through the state for at least 30 plus days, but hopefully they'll like what we put together and we'll make amendments as necessary.
So I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the application for the transfer station certification as prepared by Mike and circulated to us. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Okay, terrific. So any further conversation? I think one question that I had is there's a lot of really good information in there. It may be premature, but at some point to put it on the website, and there's just generally people are looking for information about the transfer station. So no matter what, I would want you to think about when you were comfortable. Maybe it's after approval versus during the application phase. I don't know, but it's really helpful. It's directionally kind of what we're thinking and also just how it operates. So.
Well, I think there's a lot of good information in the plan. I can check with the Waste Management District to see if there would be any concerns about posting it now. But to me, we're kind of showing a plan in a draft form that's going to the state for their concurrence.
Right.
So hopefully it's supposed to be.
Probably doesn't get much change, but hopefully.
And I don't think we're going to lose any certification. I think that was referenced before.
Yeah.
We're just trying to see what we've got and make those cursory improvements as needed by the state. And of course, if there's certain things we need to do for compliance, we'll address those as they come up.
So any other discussion, questions?
I didn't really study we're not replacing pavilions and, the roof structures over the.
No,
we're
trying to move them away because they're causing harm right now. The pressure of those blocks is pushing the vertical structure. And we don't want to have it fall over.
If we do a more significant, project like we did for the, like we did for the shop.
That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, that will have to come back to the board with a more specific plan. This is more just the projects to make it a little safer and to cope with the situation that is there now. Also just to come into compliance in terms of having
we've done that before.
I think it has to be done every 10 years or 8 years.
That's about when we really went through it, was about 10 years.
Right.
It's a great opportunity to see where can we be better.
And things were a lot different up there with
I don't know if the rules changed or what, but what we put together 10 years ago did not meet the requirements.
Well, what we had for an assessment and things was all different. What we were sending to Brattleboro, and that may have been a little more than 10 years ago, but it's a lot different now. Not that that's relevant here, but.
I only see one administrative type thing, and it's really between you two, because I think you were on there as a secondary contact, and it probably should be more Mike. Partly he's put it together, but
Mike has done the heavy lifting.
Longevity that the administrative person should be the administrative contact. Really, that was it. It's so thorough, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's really. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So any other questions? No. Okay, so I'll call the vote. All those in favor of approving, please say aye.
Aye.
Terrific, thank you. So we're actually opening the RFPs. Are they in the?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Andy, it looks like you're willing to take the honor of opening.
How about from Meeks Maintenance? Want to do that one?
That's the cemetery.
Yes.
This is mowing. Well,
Because I think
it's all
Laura's
mowing.
on there, so you
It's all
want
mowing,
to-
it's just some is cemetery and some is road.
Well, we'll do the cemetery anyway. Snowman on the envelope. There's a snowman on
I
it.
know, I noticed that.
It's been sitting here for a while.
It's just that cold.
This is from Will Mowry, bid for cemetery RFP for the town of Jamaica for the year 2023. You want all the cemeteries?
Oh, you can give us the total if you want.
For all the cemeteries except the village cemetery, which includes Rossonville, East Jamaica, South Hill, South Wyndham, Pikes Falls, West Jamaica. Total for the 2023 season, $10,600. That's with 6 additional hours. And then he's got, I'm not really sure about that means, that's 50, but I think it's probably.
I think it's
10
explained there,
cents.
maybe.
A few of the cemeteries have some tree damage from winter storms this year. They will require some chainsaw work to cut the limbs up and removing the limbs. If the town crew does not take care of those, then some of the extra hours listed will have to go towards taking care of those limbs. Thanks, Will Mowry.
Thank you.
So we have
So
another.
there's already, just to clarify, there's already some additional hours that are open to be used for anything.
Right, he
they
baked in.
Might be,
Yes, they're
Right,
already.
right.
could be used for that.
10-6.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not an additional.
No.
No.
Yeah.
And this one is from Austin Meeks with his address, credentials, submitted to the town of Jamaica for the same cemeteries. West Jamaica Cemetery, okay. Oh, you didn't give me a total.
You can give your total.
Oh, yeah. How many roughly
Does someone want to add it up on
Oh
their
gosh,
phone?
yeah.
Unless I'm missing it.
No, I'm not seeing it on this page, let's see. No, but he also has 6 extra hours. Instead of for 450, it's for
I
300.
can add it real quick.
Yeah, because we have to do it by mowing. So we'll first just do spring cleanup,
Okay, hold on. Okay,
100, 50, 175, 100, 60, 50. Okay. He did not put a fall cleanup on here, so he's not showing a separate cleanup for the fall. And now let's do per mowing. Mowing, so for,
I'm adding this to the
Yeah.
535, is that what you have, Sarah?
Yep.
okay. So mowing, the first one would be 200 times 7. Next would be 50 times 8. Oh, sorry, 175 times 8.
You got it, Sarah.
I'm doing it wrong. I'm sorry, go back. I apologize. Thank you, Andy. So starting from the beginning on mowing, 200 times 7,
Okay.
175 times 8, 175 times 3, 150 times 4.
Hold on a second. I'm at 175 times.
Oh, sorry.
Told you it was past my bedtime.
Yeah, mine too, my dear.
Okay, go ahead.
75 times 3.
Yep.
And 75 times 3.
Mm-hmm.
We don't, so it's a little bit apples to oranges. What I'm gonna do is say, give me that total.
Yep.
And
4,310.
Okay.
This is insurance.
Oh, okay. Is that Austin's?
Yes.
Or- Okay. So then what I'm gonna ask you to do is subtract from the 10,000 figure. So I'm gonna give you the numbers we're gonna subtract.
Okay. 10,000.
660 minus 415,
Mm-hmm.
250,
Mm-hmm.
300,
Mm-hmm.
300, 150, 125.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're gonna add to the total of 4,310
Mm-hmm.
the 6 extra hours, which will be 300. So it's 4,610.
Okay.
So what was the total for,
Will's was 9,120, Austin's was 4,610.
so I think even with the difference of the fall cleanup,
And they're all for the same number of mowings,
same number of mowings.
same,
Yeah, he's just, much less expensive.
Who is, Austin?
Austin is,
Right.
yeah, I mean, if you
and
just.
neither one of them includes the village.
No, we need
Neither
to
one of
talk
them.
about that
No,
after, or
no,
sometime.
That's a
but,
separate thing.
you know, I think
Just making sure.
if there weren't such a disparity, I would say, you know, it's getting close, but,
No, that's a, like, pretty easy decision for me.
so.
And they both have their insurance thing in there and all that good stuff.
Well, I know Austin did. I
Yeah.
don't think Will had it here.
Will did
But
it last
he
year.
provided it
Right,
last
he did
year.
it last year and he provided it last year.
And these were structured, the bid, sorry for all the clear, the bid structure was based on the total for all the mowings, because I think one year we got ourselves in trouble that we were bidding out each individual mowing and we awarded it separately to, but that's not the case, I just want to double check.
No, we asked for a
Which is
bid
how it
that
should
would
be.
address
It
all
should
of the
how it should
cemeteries.
be, we don't
Right.
want 6 people working on
Right.
each individual stuff.
Right.
Yeah, okay, no, just clarifying, based on, I remember in the past, it was cumbersome.
Right here.
To accept Austin's bid?
Second. Any further discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, terrific.
And one more for the roadside mowing.
That's awesome that we
We
got.
got one, we got one.
Last year.
Yeah, we've been,
Did
yeah.
we not, did we do it last year?
No, we
We haven't
didn't
done
have,
it in 2 years.
No one's
2 years, no one's did.
From Saladino Property Maintenance Incorporated, West Halifax, Vermont. Town of Jamaica, scope 35 miles of roadside mowing in order of priority with the guidance of the town road foreman for the summer months of July and August 2023. Proposal to include all equipment, fuel, materials, and labors associated with roadside mowing. Mowing will consist of cutting all grassy vegetation off sides of road 4 to 6 feet when safe and possible. Grassy vegetation will be cut to a height of 4 to 6 inches. Price proposal excludes any sort of flagging or traffic control. Proposal does include roadside mowing ahead warning signs placed 2 miles ahead and behind the operator mowing. Project price $25,000.
Perhaps that's why you didn't do it last year.
We never
No,
got
we
it.
didn't get, nobody bid on
No
it.
bid at all.
And that's
No.
why it's so high, because nobody does that anymore.
No,
Basically.
right. Wow.
All payments net 30, whatever that means.
I mean,
You have 30 days to
you have
pay.
30 days
Time
to
of
pay.
invoice.
That's what I thought.
Right. Right.
I'm trying to think of the last time, what was it, like 14 grand or something when we did?
It was 14 or 15 or so.
It was 14 or 15.
And
Yeah.
we started hitting rocks and sand piles
I
and.
thought
Yeah.
that's why we took
I shouldn't
Drew,
be
because
saying
it was
that.
like 5,000.
Right.
We're getting more bids.
And this
We
was,
didn't have the sickle.
this was 4 or 5 years ago, I mean, that, I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that,
it was a
Right.
few years, because the guys did it a couple of years
but
ago.
we don't have to accept it.
We don't. Do you want to, why don't we do you want to take it up when we have the full board in 2 weeks? It's up to you. I mean, it's up to us, but
How bad is it? I mean, we don't
I
know
have,
yet.
We don't know
we don't
yet,
have a draft.
but
Yeah.
we've got, I mean, that's where I'd like to converse with Keith.
Okay.
To say, I mean, I'm glad that it's not for all of our roads, because they all don't need it.
Okay.
Right.
I would,
Right. And it's obviously not any state roads. It's town
Right,
roads.
right. and
Right.
they all don't need it.
Right. And it's a lot. It's a, you know, covers a lot of miles.
And it's rained a lot.
And it is tough work. My
Yeah.
dad
Oh,
was-
and it's a
Yeah,
huge beat up on that equipment.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an unreasonable bid, I don't think, it's
No.
just,
Right.
it comes as a
Shock.
budgetary shock. I mean,
Sticker
that's,
shock.
Right.
Um,
Right.
I don't know either on how the exact, you know, RFP was worded, if we could say, you know what, we only have 20 miles that we need done,
Right.
Can we back that out?
Well,
or is
since
this
we
a-
only have one,
Is this a one-time
right,
contract?
bid, we could probably, negotiate,
Yeah.
have a discussion, yeah. So I'm gonna move to table
Okay.
the motion for 2 weeks, and, right, thank you.
I would
You'll-
agree with that. I don't know if everybody
Right,
feels the
right.
same way, but.
So all those in favor of tabling the motion until the next meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, thank you. All right, well, I know we all would like it, because it really makes a huge difference, so let's see what we can.
So-
It snows 2 months later.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe public concerns, but what about the cemetery? I've got some calls about, do we want to, am I out of order if we ask, that I ask to see if the Meeks kid or the guy would,
Oh, yeah, he'll do it. He's already
Oh,
already
I
been
didn't know that.
approached.
They had
Yeah.
hired him, then they said that they were turning
Yes.
it over, so
Yes.
we didn't.
That's what I was
He had already
looking
been
for.
hired,
Yes.
actually, yeah,
Yes.
and I didn't realize
Excellent.
this, but,
Okay.
yeah.
That's easy.
Yeah, but no, absolutely.
Not out of order at all.
Absolutely.
And it makes good ethical sense that we pay
Right,
somebody.
and on that note, I'm gonna skip overweight permits, everyone, and we'll just put that towards the end, because we have a few more substantive points. So, Bruce Chapin has been the sexton for that village cemetery for quite some years, done a great job. So I make a motion to appoint, Bruce Chapin as sexton for the village cemetery, newly taken over by the town. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Great.
Does-
Any
does he
discussion?
want- does
He
want-
does.
Okay.
That's a good
He
point.
wants it. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Great, terrific, thank you. So I was gonna give a super quick update on, our search for Terry's replacement. We have 4 resumes, all qualified, 1 local, who some of us know well, so, but everyone really kind of looks certainly, qualified. And so the next step is that's going to the committee, to divvy up, checking references and having preliminary, phone interviews with the candidates. So that should happen hopefully by the next meeting. Our next meeting, we'll have maybe, something to talk about in terms of scheduling, interviews
Would there
with
be
the
4
board.
interviews, hopefully?
Say that again?
Would there be 4 candidates?
There are
or-
4 candidates, so we could have as many as 4 interviews unless there's something,
Okay.
unless there's, something major
A
that
real
comes
red
up.
flag
Yeah,
or
a real
something.
red flag, right, like a
Yeah, it'd be great to-
criminal record or something
Yeah.
like that.
Related to me.
Right, oh, that's
Red flag, okay.
yeah,
Why?
exactly,
Once a month.
exactly.
That's right. I can't do it.
Yeah, exactly. So I may have to call a special meeting, guys, for us, as long as 3 of us can make a Zoom meeting this week to formally approve, temporarily assigning Sarah the role of treasurer and delinquent tax collector, particularly so the delinquent tax, notices can start going out again. I will need like
That's
5
something that
minutes, and we'll
needs
do it
to
as
be
a.
at a warrant meeting.
Right, but we could do it at, a special.
We're all learning as we go along.
Yeah, this was a little bit of a
Yeah,
surprise,
right
yeah.
We're
No,
not
'cause
sure,
it's not
but,
warned,
yeah.
I don't think so, I mean,
We
the fact that we
figured
actually had
It's
to
easy
do
enough
it.
to do it on Zoom.
Yeah, we'll just do it on Zoom and I'll send out an email, see when everybody can do that. The last, late addition is, I think some people are probably already aware that the flagpole has been suffering. It's lost several, sections, so, it's a lightweight kind of, it can't be aluminum, but it's not heavy duty, it's not something you can weld, so if there's damage, you can't weld and repair it.
Is this the one on the little?
The
right
one,
there?
yeah, which is now like leaning up somewhere next to the
Oh.
church or something. It's basically not usable, so, we're gonna get some pricing and I'm gonna bring.
With the light on it.
With the light on it, there was a long conversation about the light.
No, I.
Well, it's
Yeah.
it's on the memorial.
It does, absolutely, and it's kind of sad.
You can get
the way
solar
things
lights,
are.
the one that was on it was solar.
Yes, it was solar, exactly, it was not, there's
Well,
no.
whatever, well, there should
Yeah.
be ones.
Yeah.
Technically, it's supposed to be, the flag is supposed to be lit up at night, isn't it?
Yes.
That's why it
yes.
needs to light.
Absolutely, it shines, supposed to shine up, so, all right, with that, I think we can go to, there's one overweight permit?
just for.
Yeah. Thank you, Andy. Terrific, okay,
Don't mind me stickies. They're
oh,
just-
those are, okay, I'm like,
Just got stuck
what
on
is
there.
that?
That's why you got that one, Justin.
Okay, terrific, yeah, we covered that, okay. Scotty Bratton, has applied for, it looks like,
That's not what I'm.
this is not what I'm looking for.
Don't read that.
This is not what I'm looking, here's the overweight, Andy,
Sorry about that.
you're giving me agita. A.S. Clark and Sons, now,
That makes
this
more
looks like
sense.
it's Fleet. He's given us the check,
So they can actually
for-
haul the box culvert up there?
Yes, probably, right, exactly. With 4 separate vehicles, up to 80,000 maximum pounds requested. I'll make a motion to approve the A.S. Clark and Sons overweight permit. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those, any discussion? No discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Terrific, all in favor. All right, so that's that. We need to review pay orders and timesheets, please. While we're doing that, I'd like to open up, this has been a long meeting, I imagine we're not gonna have much, but Paul, any public concerns? None at all, all right. Well, listen, it was such a, really, this was quite a meaty meeting, wouldn't you say?
Meeting, I like it.
Lots of good
I'm glad I
information.
came in early just for this.
Just for this, right?
Missed it.
Okay. Terrific. So we have pay orders. All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Second, all those in favor? Aye.